Hi. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our final segment in our Build Business 2021 Conferences and Conversations series, where we've been talking all things Build Business with our guest speakers. So I'm excited to get started today. I am Bethany Smith. I'm the Conference Committee Chairperson for Build Business this year. Today, I'm uber excited to introduce our guest keynote speaker, Bonin Bough. Bonin's keynote talk, Bending the Curve, Tools to Unlock Organizational Growth, will cover how we can drive innovation across our organizations. He's worked with some of the largest companies in the world, like Oreo, Cadbury, Pepsi, Gatorade, among others, just to help them drive strategic initiatives and to create leading-edge marketing campaigns. Bonin is one of the foremost award marketing executives in his field. By the way, it's really interesting. When I Googled Bonin, everything was like marketing guru, marketing guru. So I think it's pretty safe to say, I think your title should be marketing guru. Anyway, he is also the host of the Cleveland Hustles, which is something I want to talk about to you a little bit later. And he's the author of the book, Text Me. Throughout his career, he is one of the youngest C-suite executives in a Fortune 50 company. He has spearheaded some of the industry's largest global marketing campaigns across digital, mobile, TV, print, and experiential, including the premiere of the first ever 3D printed food product, the customizable real-time 3D printed Oreo at South by Southwest. That's awesome. As Chief Media and E-commerce Officer at Mondelez International, which was formerly Kraft Foods, he created some of the first marketing programs across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Paramount Films, ABC, NBC, Fox, and took precedence in fostering partnerships with startups, including Instagram, Foursquare, and BuzzFeed. Wow. Welcome, Bonin. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm excited. It's so interesting to hear Instagram mentioned as a startup nowadays. But yes, I met them. They had 6 people working for them. And Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure many of your viewers. First of all, hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. And Bethany, I'm so excited to be speaking with you. So thank you so much. Gary Vaynerchuk, who introduced me to them. We did the first ever brand campaign that Instagram had done. We did a brisk can, and we put photos of the creators on Instagram on the can. And he was like, you should invest in these guys. I was like, it's a photo sharing app. Little to say. I could have, I might not be here today. So look out for us, but yeah, so anyway.
Well, I mean, your loss is our gain, I'll tell you. So today is actually the first official day of Build Business 21, but you are actually taking the stage as part of Build Business on Thursday, which is Thursday, August 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
Where you'll be. Yes. Well, I hope so. Yeah. And you're going to be our keynote. So I was wondering, maybe without giving too much away, could you describe what your talk is going to be like with us for this week, or some of the key focuses, what we can look forward to?
I mean, should I really give it away?
Not too much. Just a teaser.
First of all, I wish that I was there in person with every single one of you, because I think one of the biggest things for me is just, my dad always used to tell me, my dad's 93 years old. He's a photographer. He shot for 60 years of his life. We just digitized 2 years ago, right at the tail end, the beginning of COVID. We stopped in January. We just digitized what my brother thought was 12,000 photographs, turned out to be 500,000 photographs. And he said,
wow,
it's not important to love what you do, but to do what you love. And so at the end of the day, I really enjoy speaking to crowds, and I just like to bring energy and excitement, just so that people can understand how passionate I am about kind of innovation and change and what's possible, right? Just unlocking what's possible. So the talk, I think on a broader level, it's kind of, I try to entertain. I hope you smile. I hope you laugh. I hope you cry. I try to bring a lot of entertainment and excitement, but I try to take you on a journey that says, at the end of the day, if we go back and we look and we break down what drives true innovation and growth, there's really 5 core pillars. The first and foremost and the most important is people, right? And so I read in 1999 in Harvard Business Review, and I was actually on an interview, but I picked up HBR, didn't know what it was, and I read, and there was a quote that said, "The mark of a great number one is where their number two goes to lead." So at the end of the day, it's really people, and I think sometimes we forget how important. I think through the pandemic, we learned how much people can actually change and pivot, and businesses that felt stuck before were because they weren't inspiring or creating a situation where change had to happen. And, people assets are our most valuable asset. And we've seen everybody from, the janitor all the way up change as a result, and change very quickly, and businesses were reinvented. And of course, there were some negative pieces there. There was a lot of negative pieces there, but the resilience and the ability for people to change. I think and I go through the 5 steps. I won't go through them all here. I think 2 of the other big pieces are, one is really audience. So I talk about, we're so used to, when we think about scale, we think about, delivering to an audience of 1 million. And I talk about, how do you actually think about 1 million audiences of one? We are, for the first time truly ever, in a place where we can have true one-to-one communication in a very manageable way. By the way, if you want a copy of the textbook, feel free to text me, 646-759-1837, and I will send you a copy of the book. Text me, which I literally have my phone number on the cover. I text with over 50,000 people, and I tell some of the stories there about how that one-to-one communication can transform and grow a business much faster than we even thought possible. And I think the last thing is moving from innovation to transformation. And so innovation is like lipstick on a bulldog, whereas transformation is truly changing the form of what you have today to what you want it to be tomorrow. So those are the things I talk about. I talk about tools. I talk about examples. I talk about Oreo. We talk about Stride gum. We talk about Nilla wafers, all those things. So you can see true examples, small business, large business, LeBron.
Well, it's interesting because and this is why we're so excited to have you, because the vision of SMPS, of our organization, is business transformed through marketing leadership. Right. And, we're in the AEC industry, we're very operationally focused companies. And as marketers, we're looking for those places where we can help transform the business. So I know you're going to be able to help us all with trying to figure out where some of those places are. And I'm really excited about it. And one of the things that you just mentioned that was really, I think really hit home was that discussion about people. And I know you've mentioned your father, and I was also looking at your social media, and you're, sharing pictures that he took, and it seems like your father was a huge influence in your life. What did influence you and bring you to where you are right now?
Definitely my dad, who and my mom quite a bit too. My dad's 93. I moved out of Miami just recently. We just went to dinner at Red Rooster, for those who know Miami. And we have a show at Art Basel, hopefully. My dad was a big part of that. But, at some point in time, my dad was a photographer and a creative that kind of spent his time in that world. And when you move into corporate, it's a different ball game, right? So I was very lucky to just have really quality humans around me, and people that anything was possible, right? And I think that was, to me, that was always the most important. And then I think that I tried, and look, it's like Thomas Edison said, I found 10,000 ways not to make a great light bulb, right? I never failed. So you get enough, I think, muscle memory, and then you begin to do and just try to explore and see what works and what doesn't. And I was lucky enough to have great people who were in leadership that I work with, like Dana Anderson, who was the CMO of Mondelez, Oreos, Wheaton, Stride, Trident, Triscuit, I mean, the biggest brands in the world. And, she, the only piece of advice she ever gave me was when I first joined. I said, what do you think? She said, just don't screw it up. I said, she used a different word, but I said, thank you, Yoda. This is very sage of you. But she always let me, when I came to her and I said, look, I'm going to drop a guy out of the sky with no parachute, no wingsuit, and he's going to land safely on the ground. She was like, good luck. I was like, okay, let's go. It took me 3 years to get it through the rest of the organization, but we made $9 million on 2 hours worth of television. Everybody told me it wasn't possible, that there was no way that we could create a piece of IP and asset that we would sell to a TV station versus paying them and they would actually write us a check. And we did it. And if you look at what I've just done or the work that I've been working on with the Triller folks, we had the 8th largest pay-per-view event in history. And what people don't realize, a 4-hour commercial that we got paid for. So I think the key, and to answer your question, it's just been there's been a lot of different people throughout that journey, but it's really finding the people who are willing to create the air cover for you and just let you go. And the other thing is I realized very early that not everybody's going to be on board. And so, people talk about alignment, and I forget about alignment. I just need the coalition of the willing. Like, who are the 5 people that are going to walk barefoot with me, and hopefully we can turn this thing into a religion.
I love that. Well, so, you kind of were going through all this thought about, like, you're talking about all these different things that you've done and creating this and creating that, like you said, finding those 5 people or finding those people that want to help you make it successful. So, thinking about, taking it down to a smaller level with instead of, you're a huge entrepreneur and you start all these amazing things, but then you've also done a great job at creating these, just specific marketing initiatives within the organizations that you've been in. So when you're approaching something like that, and maybe the principles are the same, whether it's just a small initiative or actually, starting a new company, what is there like a process that you go through that helps you bring everything together to?
I think there's so many different pieces, but I do try to explain that in the talk. So if you want the real, you got to watch the talk.
Okay, yeah, Thursday at noon. You have to tune in.
There you go. But I think that part of it is mindset. So a lot of what I try to do in that talk is just inspire a different mindset, right? So I talk about how do you break your mindset, because I'm learning how stuck in my own ways I am every single day and trying to break that continually as well. And I think one of the biggest things. So when we did I know you were going to talk about LeBron. Also, we have an investment fund called Lockstep with Kyrie. So I spread the wealth amongst or spread the opportunity amongst all my basketball friends. Clearly, LeBron is and the funny thing is that photo of me, people are like, "Oh my God, I'm like, he's sitting down."
Yeah,
he's
like 50 feet tall, right? Like, oh my gosh.
He's in like a beach chair and he's still taller than me. I'm like, this is outrageous. No, I think one of the biggest things that, Cleveland Hustles, really what that was to build a model to reinvent and revitalize neighborhoods through investing in entrepreneurs. So we took local investors and we took local entrepreneurs and we brought them together. 80% of small businesses fail in the first 18 months for 2 reasons. One, they don't have access to capital. So we tried to fix that. But 2, they don't know how to grow. And so we really focused on helping them with the tools that are necessary to grow. And for good reason. So many of them are focused on payroll. Right? Like, how do I just get my people paid? How do I get account, and that those are the important pieces of actually running a business. But there's a whole other side of how do I think about and this is what I talk about in the talk, how do I think about how to grow my business? And my biggest thing to all those folks was just because you're a small business doesn't mean that you need to think small. And so we took a guy, he had quit Cleveland Bagel Company. If anybody lives in Cleveland, go buy a bagel. Tell them I sent you. Maybe they'll give you a discount. Cleveland Bagel Company. So he quit his job, so passionate about creating bagels. He slept in his car and used a shared kitchen where he would wake up at 4 a.m. He would make bagels. They became so known that he couldn't bake enough. So he asked his friend to use a freezer. ended up creating a process where he could freeze the bagels and they tasted almost as good frozen as they were fresh. And so all he wanted was to open a bagel store. And we said, great, we're going to open you a bagel store. I said, but on the other side, the frozen bagel market hasn't been disrupted in forever. It's Thomas's and it's Linder's, and it's a $480 million marketplace. How do we get into that? So I got him on a plane. We flew to New York. We sat down with the CEO of Boxed, which is like Amazon, but for like big purchases, so like a Sam's Club kind of, but online. We took him from selling a truckload of bagels a month to a truckload of bagels a day, got him a national contract, transformed the business. He still has 2 beautiful bagel stores, but he also has a massively huge frozen bagel business. So that's kind of the piece, which is like, what's possible? And then let's figure out a plan to get there. But if we never explore what's possible, we're never going to get there, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you've clearly done a lot of exploring what's possible within your career. And obviously you mentioned LeBron. When I was researching a little bit about your history and your path and where you are today, obviously the Cleveland Hustles, which feels, like you said, it's like an incubator for small businesses. And I love what you did behind that. And then now you also have Triller. And can tell us about that. I mean, and you get to work with Snoop Dogg, which is pretty cool. So, just what took you to that, and how did you, how did you decide that was where you wanted to go next?
I didn't think that I would. So I started a investment group with a good friend of mine. I love all the comments. Thank you. I'll jump in and answer some of those too. We looked at it, and that was kind of, we said, hey, this is interesting. In March, right before pandemic, we decided to take operating roles. And it's, again, I think at this point, I try to follow people who I believe have big vision. And the person who introduced it to me is a guy named Ryan, who's probably one of the biggest thinkers that or one of the biggest thinkers I've met in a long time. And we were going to take on, the crazy thing is, so we're a short form video platform as our start, but we're much more than that. So we're TrillerNet. So we're really we're a company that owns a bunch of cultural assets that we can basically take brands and integrate them, everything from Versus, which is the transformation of music, to the Fight Club, to our creator network, to Big Three. It goes on and on. And it's interesting because more than anything, we're taking on the biggest, legitimately, we go up against TikTok, for example. That is the biggest company in the world. And the fact that we're, from last March to now, even mentioned in the conversation, even brand marketers or advertisers, it's insanity. We go up against, Facebook, all these guys. And we took that business from, I think it was 100 million when we started, from a valuation standpoint, well over 2 billion now, in a very short period of time. But what it was really, we did the things that, we launched Fight Club and got paid for an advertisement. We used influencers, which nobody was focused on. We did a lot of the things that we knew were right that nobody else was doing. But even more than that is we were on the right side of history. So the whole ethos of the organization is that we believe creators should have the right to monetize their creativity. And so we're constantly focusing on making sure that the people, if you think about all these other platforms, they've been built on the back of creators, right? So creators actually get a very small piece of it. We flip that model because at the end of the day, the people who create the content are the ones that bring the audience. And so if we can be the best place for creators, then I think we can win. I guess that would be one other piece I would say, is that making sure you're on the right side of history, you're probably going to win 90% of the time.
That's amazing. So I want to switch gears really quickly. This time together is going so fast because you have so many awesome things to say, but so I want to get this in. So our conference this year, obviously, the pandemic was just crazy for everybody, and there's been so much out there, and so many people struggled, yet so many people also found inspiration and created a lot of innovation and things like that. So the conference this year, we ended up coming up with this theme of rise, right? It's time for everyone to rise together and rise to the occasion, and let's rise up out of where we've been, just to build something better. And so that stands for resilience, impact, strength, and equity. And I know that you've done a lot of work in that equity space. Before we got on this today, you were talking a little bit about Group Black and about owned media and how that's all worked. And I was wondering if you could share that with with those that are watching right now.
Right, of course. So I'm in the process of joining the board for a company called Group Black, and I've really kind of helped from a thought process shape the architecture of it. It was really basically, you see the world talking about investing in minority-owned media, whether it's Native American, whether it's Black, Latina, women, and so Group Black is addressing all of those, but starting off with Black-owned. But one of the big pieces of work that I did was to just look in the space and see what existed, and it was crazy that there's just really none. And it goes all those minorities. They're really just ownership. When you're talking about ownership, there's a lot targeted to, but very little owned by. And one of the pieces that Group Black focused on was that a percentage, so building a coalition of companies, and all those member companies, a portion of that is reinvested into building the ecosystem. And so that's really what the big piece is how do you build the ecosystem for emerging minority-owned properties? And so that's what they focus on doing. And that was kind of the model that we kind of worked through, which was how does it reinvest so that at the end of the day, 10 years from now, we're not all sitting here doing the same Google search and finding the same results. And so I think, it's very important work that I think has to be done across all those segments. But the most important piece of that model is that those that are minority owned are taking on the onus of helping to build the ecosystem because they're the ones that are taking the 20% haircut. Triller is we're doing our piece in there as well. So it's been great. It's been amazing. It's been more amazing to see how much the industry has responded positively and is just moving investment. And so I think this model will work across the board again, from Native American to women to Asian to Latinx, you name it. And I think that, we'll be able to sit back 10 years from now and say, wow, we actually created real impact here. And I think that's one surprise.
Yeah, I think that's what's so interesting about it. And I feel like that's something that you can borrow, that concept, you can borrow and put it into almost anything, right? Like, you're saying it's not just that you're creating a catalyst for growth or anything, but you're saying, grow with us and then help grow the next group. Like, you have to invest back into it. You got to be bought in. And it's one thing to say you're bought in, and it's another thing to actually put some investment and some dollars behind that. And that, I would think, is going to lead to exponentially successful growth in that area.
The second piece that I talk about in the talk is moving from aspiration to allocation. So it's one thing to aspire. You can aspire, I want to be the most fittest person in the planet, but if I don't go to the gym, it's not going to happen. And so many times organizations say, I want to aspire to be the largest digital marketer in the world, but here's 2% of my budget. You know what I mean? And so we have to like, show me how much you invest and I'll show you how successful you'll be. And so much so we have to shift from kind of aspiration to actually allocating the time, resource. And the crazy thing is I show a chart which asks people, do you think the company spent, and this is from the work that I did when I was at Mondelez, do you think that new techniques can grow the business? 80% said yes. Do you think we invest enough in new techniques? And this is mobile specifically, but 60% said no. Do you personally invest enough of your time? 60% said no. And then we asked people, do you feel comfortable? And I think 60% said no. So not only do we agree that this is what's going to change the business, but we all also agree that we're not spending enough time or spending enough money. So like, you'll never get those results. It's just, and so that's one of the biggest things is that, yes, if you want to change a situation, you have to invest the time, money, and effort to make it so.
Yeah, you can't just wave a magic wand and hope for the best,
It's the same thing with people I talk to about, like, everybody everybody wants to find the silver bullet. They want to find the magician that's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and transform their organization. But what they don't realize is that they want the change agent. You heard that a million times. We need a change agent. The reality is the most innovative companies, every single person in that organization believes that they are the catalyst for change. And so more so than trying to find a change agent, you have to become an organization that's an agent for change. And you have to create that mindset across the organization that every single one of you is the transformation we need, right? And that's the way that truly innovative companies, exist. It's not one person. We might say Steve Jobs, but to be perfectly honest, and God bless Steve, Apple's doing pretty well, in the absence of Steve, because the organization was built to be innovative, not just Steve.
Right. Wow. Well, that's great. I'm so excited for Thursday. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for like 3 hours, but I'm certain you've got more lives to change. So before we do wrap up, I do have another quick question. So in terms of marketing, right? What's next? Like, what do you think what's around the corner? What should we be looking at?
So first of all, to the person who asked if I mentor, happy to share thoughts at any time. Just let me know. I do think text messaging is big. I think it depends on the space you're in. What's around the corner is so hard to say, right? But I think for me, what I've been seeing is the power, and I know this sounds cliche, but the power of influencers. So the ability to work with those people who are creating audiences, even at a micro level. And I've seen the impact of this at least over the last 6 years, and I think it's only getting greater. And so we forget that, there's one piece, which is celebrity, but there's this micro market, which even if you're in business, so like I guess I'm a business influencer, right? There's but more important than that is the people, unlike celebrity, the people who, are part of my LinkedIn community, they have a lot of trust in me. So, and as a result, they'll think, about taking an action that I suggest they should take. And I also care about my audience, so I would never send them on a goose chase that I don't think is appropriate. And so I think that we have not truly valued how much kind of that micro influence impact they're actually in. So I think that's a huge piece.
Well, and I wonder too, listening to you talk, I'm thinking a lot of people in our industry and really everywhere, one of the things that we're really, that's a big struggle, especially in construction, is hiring and recruiting and getting people interested in a career in construction, specifically skilled trades and craft. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could take that whole concept of micro influencers and apply it to getting people interested in a career in construction and, pursuing that as their life's work.
I think construction is first of all, I think it's a beautiful industry. I think it's a very misunderstood industry. I don't think people associate the word career and construction enough. And I don't think there's probably a lot of work to be done there. I don't think people understand that there's truly a big career that can be made inside of the construction industry. And so I think that would be, I definitely think that there could be the use of micro influencers to help that. But in general, I just think that, if people understood how diverse and how expansive construction really is, I think, you'd have your pick of the litter.
Well, on that note, listen, this has been amazing. Like, I have learned so much just in the last 30 minutes alone. And I know that we have, hopefully everyone signed up and is ready to listen to you talk on Thursday. And I know we're going to learn so much more then. I cannot wait until that time. So I just really want to say thank you so much for joining me here today. And thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. I don't want to oversell it. So, hopefully everybody enjoys it. But no, Bethany, it was such a pleasure. And thank you for every single one of you who are watching and commenting. And I can't wait. Just again, my number is 646-759-1837. Feel free to text me. I'm happy to talk.
And you know what, if anyone didn't get a chance to write that down, you can actually go to Bonin's LinkedIn, and it's right there. The phone number is right there. So I'm excited about that and to get my copy of your book. So I just want to oh, look, it's now somebody put it in the chat for us. Yay, it's in the chat. So if you want to text Bonin, you could grab it out of the chat. So to everyone watching and listening, this is our last Conferences and Conversations as part of the series. So thank you so much for watching. As mentioned at the beginning, today is the first official day of Build Business 2021 Rise. I cannot wait to see all of you at all of our different sessions throughout the week. Don't forget to mark your calendars and favorite Bonin's keynote session in the event platform in the hub space, which again is Thursday, August 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you later this week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.